His focus is in driving product scaling, life cycle management, and go-to-marketing of industrial IoT solutions. Amit is part of the embedded industry for more than 20 years with experience in product marketing, business development, design, and development of embedded systems and IoT products. Thank you, Amit. Thank you for joining in. May I, on behalf of all the participants, welcome you. And to all the participants, I would like to mention that this session would be a one-way communication. As you can see, there is a question answer and a chat box on your screen on the toggle of GoToWebinar. So you can queue in any questions during the presentation of Amit, and Amit can take that up. He has already mentioned that he can take that up during his presentation or maybe after the presentation as we work along. So if you have any queries, you can put that in the chat box. Over to Amit. Amit, I'll just make you the presenter. Yeah, you would have received a confirmation there.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope you are able to see me and also hear me out. Is that okay, Vignesh?
Yes, Amit, yes.
And Abhishek? Okay, fantastic.
Your screen is yet to be visible. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Your screen, I think your desktop screen is yet to be visible. So
sure, because I'm sharing that.
Yeah, now it's fine. Yes. This is fine. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Always there's a bit of a tech glitch that happens at the start, right? So again, good morning, everyone, and thank you again, CII team, for setting this up and actually providing opportunities for MSMEs to share their experiences, right. Because I believe in the principle of learning from you. Not anybody or so generally, if anybody comes back and says that I know everything about IoT, that's pretty much a lie, right? So I would like to say that even though I have been in this industry for 20 plus years, I'm still learning. There are a lot of new use cases and new things that come by, amazing new things to learn from, and obviously some things that we can help each other on. So keeping those aspects in mind, what I wanted to do today is share some of the learnings that we have and also some of the partner solutions that we have come across from an Intel point of view. And wanted to show you on that particular regards, right? So some of the key learnings, what are the things that people have achieved or are in the process of achieving, and how can we bring those into Indian context. So IoT, it's definitely transforming our lives. There are so many use cases that are coming up. There are so many places where we actually see a lot of value, a huge amount of value. A very simple thing that everybody is right now looking at is into COVID, the coronavirus that is running around right now. And people are using innovative techniques, including flying drones. I don't know whether you have those videos or not, including flying drones to figure out if people are actually conforming. Now, that's something debatable from area to area point of view, whether Europe will want to do it, whether India is doing it, whether China has already done that, right? So privacy and all of those concerns are definitely there, but then public safety is primarily important in some cases. So COVID compliance, definitely one of the things that are happening. We are looking into a lot of improvements in healthcare because of IoT, specifically in terms of tracking. So I don't know whether you heard the news or at least following the news that India is going to provide smart wristbands which will allow to track COVID positive patients, and they will also allow to track their health status. Now, what are those health parameters? What exactly will they be monitoring? Obviously, people can make a guess, but definitely one of the areas where it is improving a lot, or rather reducing a lot of burden on our healthcare system, right? So there are a lot of things that are happening. There are a lot of efficiency that we are trying to drive. And today's focus that I want to have is on the manufacturing sector, because my understanding is that today we will have more number of people dialing in who are in the manufacturing sector. So certain examples, certain use cases that we have seen working on. Now, we have been talking about IoT for a long time. To be very frank with you, IoT earlier was called embedded business, right? And embedded business is nothing but just connecting the data and just storing the data somewhere. The only difference between embedded business and IoT is that now we are trying to drive intelligence out of that data. And when we are trying to drive intelligence, that is where things will be either improving. You will know what are the bottlenecks, you will know what to do, what not to do, and there are different models that we can work on. So I have some of those visibility thought processes that we follow, and also what we have seen our customers follow. So any IoT deployment, before you get into, we have to take into account certain aspects of why you are doing it and what's your end goal, right? So this is a generic framework that we follow, or for that example, pretty much everyone follows. It's nothing but a distributed computing framework, right? So you have a massive amount of data which is coming in, specifically when we are talking about camera data, when we are looking at, let's say, compliance of people, right, or facial recognition, or facial recognition means base attendance monitoring. There are a lot of those functionalities that are coming in, which require a lot of data. How do you ensure that that amount of data can be transported all the way from the things to the cloud? Now you can choose to do processing based on what type of latencies you have. So all your decisions have to be based on that. Not every solution requires you to have edge analytics, but there are some solutions where edge analytics becomes extremely important. So we will talk about some of those cases where people have seen value. I'll give an example. Energy meter, the standard energy meter that we have in few apartments, as well as, let's say, at least on the industrial sector, they are all connected. They are all 6LoWPAN connected, which is 802.15.4 wireless connections. The data from those meters are sent on an hourly basis to the central command control center, where somebody is actually doing the billing or also analyzing what's happening, load balancing and all of those, right? It's not real time, but it is definitely something that people are doing already. Now that does not require to have analytics at the edge for the energy meter, right? But let's say if you are going into a system where you have a very heavy machinery and now you want to analyze whether the machine is doing well or not, then you need to get sample data, which is the voltage and the current at a very high frequency. The moment you get into high frequency, now can I transport the data to the cloud and then do a decision making? No, maybe not. Maybe some cases it is the latencies are way too much. So in that particular scenario, you will have to choose a system which caters to your requirement, and the business decision and the business scenario is well defined by you, right? So we have to work. So the solutions that I'm going to talk about are mix and match of both, where people have deployed solutions across and people have seen value out of it. Now, we have been talking about AI and IoT and all of this, like I said before, for quite some time. For example, like I said, embedded business or neural network, for that matter, has been around since 1980s. I remember my professor in IIT Kharagpur who had written a book on it, and when I was reading it at that time, frankly, it was like, okay, it's so compute intensive. When will it even come? And now if I look at it, I look back those years, I see the reason why this adoptions have changed is primarily because of two factors. One is the cost of compute, right? So if you want to have a neural engine setting up on, let's say, a simple laptop like what I am using today to present, or even a phone for that matter, I'm pretty sure you would have seen those Realme or Xiaomi phones which says AI enhancement techniques. Now there is a bit of AI that is coming in across all of those places. So so that is factor number one, the cost of compute, which has really come down to a 15,000 rupee phone, or let's say a 50,000 rupee laptop for that matter, right? So that's the cost of compute that has come down. And the second one that has come down is the cost of transport. So we are looking at cost of storage and cost of transport for that matter, right? So today we are looking at a huge amount of bandwidth. Pretty much everybody is, even though Zoom is not has become infamous in the last 2 weeks or so, but there are a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, would have started using Zoom for their catching up with their family and friends, or even starting at work front, right? So there are a lot of people who are using WebExes, or even those commute kind of options, where they are working from home, right? So I don't know whether life has become easier or difficult, but something has changed. So having said that, the two factors, again, just to reiterate, one is the cost of compute, and the second one is cost of bandwidth and storage. The third factor which has happened today, which is also an important aspect, which you look in the centerpiece, the accuracy of the system that we are deploying has become more than human accuracy. Now, what do you mean by that? So when I am talking to you, I am using speech and you understand English, so you understand what I am talking. And that's the simple linguistic approach by which we are talking to each other. Earlier, sometime 4 or 5 years back, if you would have used translate or dictate as a function, I don't know how many if you remember the amount of errors that it used to have, right? I'm pretty sure you are using Alexa, or maybe OK Google, or Siri if you have Apple phones. The amount of errors that you see now when you talk, that is speech to text conversion, has phenomenally reduced. It has become as good as how a human would hear, including commas and punctuations and everything added, right? So AI system has become as good as how a human would intercept to an average human. The solutions have become really what does it come to your mind? I'm pretty sure the first thing that will come to your mind is Intel product doesn't work. Now, for us to ensure that whatever products that we bring out and we brought in, and we want to put a logo of our product in that, as in logo of our brand in that, in somebody else's product, we have to go through a lot of ecosystem enabling, right? So we, as I said, directly don't sell anything. We sell via our partners, but we work very, very, very closely with our ecosystem partners, with our suppliers, everybody, to ensure that you get a best-in-class experience, right? And obviously, when we are developing those, we do work with certain end customers, but very lead set of end customers. So that is something that I just want to talk about and share on the learnings based on that. And obviously, we also communicate to you what our ecosystem has brought in. So today, what I want to talk about is again the ecosystem, and what exactly we are trying to bring in. So before I jump to a simpler stuff, I want to give you a little bit of a complicated view of what we have as assets, right? So if you are a developer who would like to develop solutions, which is, let's say, IoT based or AI based or MLDL based, you will require a lot of assets. Assets in terms of hardware, assets in terms of software, asset in terms of training, asset in terms of inference. There are a lot of those assets. So this particular slide just gives you a little bit of a complicated view of all the things that are available. Now, this is only for you to understand. There are a lot of people doing a lot of stuff, including the cloud providers on the top, software, camera vendors, developers, and then obviously the hardware partners that we have who are building all of those kind of devices, right? So this is just to give you a view. Now, let me try to. I would not want to. Let me see if I can try to simplify what exactly it means when we take all of these assets into an industrial scenario, right? So we have seen this. I'm pretty sure you are aware of this, and you would have seen somewhere or the other this kind of a slide. So we were in Industry 1.0 earlier. Somewhere India, I would rather say that we are in Industry 2.0 or 3.0, somewhere in that between, and we are in the progression of moving to Industry 4.0. Right now, what exactly does that mean? So I'll cover a brief on that particular portion. So when we say Industry 2.0, it's a pure, simple mass production system that we have. There are a lot of those. I'm pretty sure there are MSMEs which are running the mass production lines and manufacturing in automotive parts, for example, or even nuts and bolts. A lot of those kind of devices that you would be manufacturing. The moment you do a little bit of automation and collect the data and put in some electronics, so a pure so Industry 2.0 will require electrical energy, so you will have motors, no doubt about it, but you may not have sophisticated control. The moment you go into Industry 3.0, by the way, China and India from that point of view is not very different. There are a lot of those China companies which are again in 2.0 and 3.0, and they are also trying to migrate to 4.0. So there are a couple of learnings that we have from there also, which may be difficult to share as of now, but if you have questions on that regard, I can take it up later. So coming back, Industry 4.0, right? Everybody is talking about it. What exactly does that mean, right? What do you mean by Industry 4.0? When we go into Industry 4.0, everything is data driven. All decisions are data driven, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say a simple example. I'm pretty sure everybody has geysers at home, right? I'm just taking a very simple geyser as an example. When you switch on the geyser, it takes a certain amount of time before it heats, right? Now, over a period of time, the geyser will degrade in performance depending upon various parameters. Obviously, the hardness of water, the kind of electrical supplies that you have, if there are fluctuations there and everything on that particular lot, the life of the geyser will be dependent on certain external parameters. If you would like to, for example, if somebody gives you a system which allows you to monitor the performance of your geyser and tells you that, okay, this is the time to change a coil, or this is the time to clean the geyser because your performance is now changing. A simple parameters, like for example, the geyser that I have at my home tells me the temperature, the set temperature, and the temperature that it is now currently after the cutoff has happened. So let's say if I set it at 45 degrees, it actually cuts off at 49 degrees. Why is there a 4-degree jump? Very simple. There is scaling that has happened inside, and the temperature sensor inside is now unable to read the right value. So now it is reading, by the time it detects, the temperature sensor detects that it has become 45, actual temperature inside has become 49. And by the time the actual temperature reaches the sensor, it's already 4 degrees up. Because of that, what has happened? I have taken extra energy because I never intended the geyser to go to 49 degrees. I wanted it to go to only 45, maybe 46 at max, but not really 49. Now that's an energy wastage that I have. And then obviously the higher the temperature in the geyser, the higher the dissipation that will happen for the heat. So I'm losing out on that also. So these are some of the examples that people have come up with, and where you can do what we call it as predictive maintenance, right? So these are all data driven decisions. I am not making this decision because somebody told me, look at that light and follow it once in a while, chart it out. No, I have made all of this decision on a data driven basis. So examples of those where industries are taking all of these decisions based on data is what is Industry 4.0. So these are some of the models that we are looking at. So what I would like to do is give you a brief about it, and then obviously go into some of the solutioning that partners have come across, right? I'll do a quick time check. Okay. So we have the first step obviously is visualization. If I don't know what is happening, how will I even correct it? So first thing first, I need to connect the unconnected. So whatever systems that you have, a very simple system, for example, a barcode scanner at entry to see when your supplies have come in, right? A barcode scanner at exit to tell you how many of your orders have been shipped. Now you can always do it manually. You can always write it down on a register and do it, or you can do it on an automated basis. Very simple steps. If you do that, you will know, and obviously in between steps also, but the moment you do something like that, now you will come into the second stage. Once you get the data, you will understand what are the conditions in which your factory is operating, what are the bottlenecks that are happening in your factory environment. Once you get to know that, now you go to the next level, which is optimization. It's like results. I'm pretty sure, I don't want to quote my son's results per se, but let's say that when we have gone through our results when we were growing up, it's a very simple math or simple analytics that happened. Anomaly detection is like, why did we lose marks? What happened? And then obviously, if we are a good student, we will try and figure out, okay, what can I do? How can I get better marks? Let's say I used to be very bad in chemistry, organic to be very precise. So I used to try to see how I can get it better. Then obviously I have to go into predictive maintenance. So now that is difficult. You can, however, do it on human context also. Like for example, if somebody has been bad consistently on a particular parameter, let's say chemistry for that matter, I would have predicted that yes, I will get less marks on chemistry when the exam would have come in, right? So just an example of those. So predict failures. These are some of the aspects. So if you don't optimize your assets, if you don't understand where exactly is your anomaly, you will not be able to predict. Only with data can you now go into the next level, which is predicting failures. Once you have predicted failures, now can I go into the next level, right? Which is recommend corrections. What are the corrections that I should do, right? So think about it from that point of view. Your health is not good, right? If you don't do exercise, we all know that if because of lifestyle changes, if you eat junk food, you will have heart failure, possibility of having heart failure, right? Or possibility of having other diseases like diabetes or something of that sort, or lifestyle diseases like that. That's predictive. We know that based on historical data, based on data that people have gathered together. We go to a doctor, the doctor recommends correction. What is the doctor here? It's a system which is super specialized, understands what is a human basic model is. And if you are having a diabetic, if you're a diabetic patient, you will not go to an ortho, right? You will possibly go to a gastroenterologist or a very specialized diabetologist, for example. You will not go to a orthopedics to see what my bones are doing, right? So similarly, in this particular case, the system has gathered so much of data that it is now become an expert by itself and can give you corrective recommendations. Now the final one, which is our holy grail, which is what Industry 4.0 is all about, is getting into a completely autonomous system. It's a self-learning system. It understands how the data is coming in, and it then ensures the whole correction that happens. Have I seen anything like this yet? No, but automotive manufacturers, specifically the large-scale automotive manufacturers, have some of their processes in an autonomous mode. Specifically, the paint shop kind of operations are pretty much autonomous. Okay, so now let me try and simplify what I have shown you on that particular one, right? So these are the 3 steps that you would have seen in the context of the presentation or the brief that was sent across, right? So first is obviously visibility. So that's a step 1. If you don't connect the unconnected, you will really not get that. That's step 1. Once we have the visibility, then you will know what are the bottlenecks and where are the places where critical operations are happening and how I can ensure compliance. The reason why compliance is becoming more and more evident is obviously because of government rules and also because of the cost of failure or cost of non-compliance that is coming up to you, right? Let's say if there is a worker getting hurt, what happens to your production line? Does it stop? How long does it stop, right? If there is a worker who is not following the instruction the way it is supposed to be done, let's say somebody is supposed to pick something or and place it in a certain place in a certain way, if that operation is not done well, do you get returns? If you get returns, what's the cost of those returns, right? So non-conformance, what's the cost of that is what you will have to look into as second step. Then obviously the last pill, which is automation. Automation is something that is again based on your scenario. In certain cases, a simple predictive and prescriptive maintenance based approach is good enough. And in certain places, maybe you can automate your inspection. Once you have automated your inspection, maybe you can automate your sorting. So for example, if there is a partner that is working on nuts and bolts, uh, they are working on solutions where nuts and bolts have to be inspected and then sorted. Now, if you have to do that manually, imagine the number of nuts and bolts that anybody would like to manufacture. It's like tens of thousands in a day. So if that kind of a system has to happen, remember or understand how many workers do you have to put in to inspect each and every bolt and each and every nut for that matter. And if those kind of systems are, and if you are going through a manual cycle, maybe you want to automate it, right? The second one obviously is that what's the cost of failure or non-compliance again, that if there is a faulty part that goes in, let's say to the customer premises or to the end customer, what happens? Does the whole lot is rejected or it is okay? So those are again the costs that you have to define as a company owner or as a factory owner. What's the cost of again non-compliance, and based on that you can decide to automate or not to automate, right? So the value propositions are completely based on the business logic that you have brought in. Any questions so far, or so Vignesh or Abhishek, you'll have to tell me if there are questions so that I can take it, or otherwise I'll move into the next step.
Not yet, Amit. So I'll just make an announcement. Also, people, there's a question box. If you want to queue in any question, you can do that now. Amit can take that up. Yeah. Yes, Amit. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So now going into some of those aspects. So like I said at the start, Intel works with ecosystem partners. So when we look at our ecosystem partners, we look at what's their maturity, how many solutions have they really deployed, what kind of support model do they have in place, right? So those are some of the steps that we take care from an industry point of view, right? Because like I said, there are places where we need to be, if my brand is there in some place, I need to be careful about it, right? So that's the kind of testing, or I would say that compliance check that we need to do. That's the same problem, right? Non-compliance, what's the effect? So coming to the first phase, right, which is visibility, which is connect the unconnected. So what we are trying to do in this particular scenario is to give you some examples of partner solutions that they have come up with. So one of the examples of partner solution, or even before going to the partner solution, you can look at ERP solutions that can give you a complete visibility of your operations. So obviously there are certain SAP based solutions that you can look at. You can look at Tally based solutions that have come up on ERP. There are a lot of those ERP vendors that have come up. You can actually go to MSME website, and there are also certain partners who have listed their solutions in the ERP domain, right? So some of the KPIs that you're looking at, obviously, so your planning, obviously, your production lining, your quality and inspection maintenance, your visibility that you need to look at, your compliance part of it, all of those visibility, you can look at it. Now, depending upon what's your need are, you will have to choose the system. The one thing that you have to always take care is the security, because everything is data driven. So and the reason why I'm stressing a lot on data, I'm sure everybody has read the news which is coming in, where Facebook has bought 10% stake in Reliance, right? What does that mean? Why would they? What's the business model here? It is all data driven, right? Facebook has one of the largest databases of people. So for today, if I want to, let's say, buy something, I have to either go to a grocery store a grocery stop or a shop nearby, or I will have to order online, let's say on Amazon or Flipkart or wherever it is, right? If I have a system where it tells me who's the nearest grocery vendor who has the thing that I want to buy. Let's say that I'm looking for a shaving kit or something similar in that particular line. I don't know where to buy, and shaving kit at least last 2 weeks was not available in most of the places, but maybe now it is available. But at that particular time, for me, it is very difficult to go from one shop to the other shop, keep on asking, Bhaiya hai kya? That's going to be very difficult, right? So if I have a connected system where the shopkeeper comes to know who is asking for something like this in my nearby area, obviously one visibility, and second, the system automatically pushes an ad to me saying that ABC shop near your area has this product that you require. That's the matchmaking, and that matchmaking turns around or reduces the overall time to sell that product, right? So everything is data driven, everything is completely data driven. So what's your buying preference and where is it available, right? So connecting all of those, and that's the reason why this deal is important, because it's going to transform how retail industry is going to work. Coming back to the other portion, so and remember why I'm stressing on that. The reason, data, the moment you have data, the person who controls the data is the king, right? So all the data that you have from your production line, production environment has to be very, very safe. You have to ensure that there is security from the start and all the data is under your control. Now, even if it is sent to the cloud, it is still under your control because it is access control, right? So it will be available to your Amazon cloud or a Google cloud or a next gen cloud, wherever you are planning to put in, right? So there are different cloud vendors that you can pick and choose, or if you are a relatively larger organization, you can always have that data hosted in your local factory, right? So it depends, again, ROI, the business cases, the cost of storing the data, the cost of transporting the data, and all of that, right? So, and one such example that somebody has, as in one of my partners, he's a Pune-based company who provides factory visualization. So there are certain key benefits that they have seen specifically for manufacturing sector. That is operating efficiency. There has been a 10% improvement simply by looking at where is the bottleneck, right? Availability is obviously improved. Your availability of assets, where are your assets? You need to know. If it's a decently large organization, you need to know where your assets are. Assets can be people, asset can be machines, right? Now when you control, now there are two ways by which you can reduce the rejection. Obviously, if you are following the process to the T, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, I have 15 steps. If I follow those steps, I know output is going to be good, right? So that's the scenario that this guy is projecting, which is reduction of 9%, up to 9%, where people have seen just based on pure analytics. If you are following the processes, then that is what happens. And obviously the return on investment is like less than 12 months. So this is an example of one of the solutions that people have, like Entrep, right? Similarly, a little bit extra. So monitoring, understanding, a complete viewpoint. Now, why is it important today, right? Why is visibility more important? COVID, unfortunately, has changed the way the things are going to happen now, at least till the vaccines are out. And gut feel, vaccines would be out only by next year, right? When in next year, we don't know, but it will be available to the public only by next year. So till next year, how am I going to follow the norms? How am I going to follow the restrictions? Does that mean that I will have all my employees going to the factory and I will be also along with them to monitor? Maybe difficult. Is there a way by which I can get visibility of my complete monitoring in a very cost effective way? I can reduce my overall transport time instead of going all the way to the factory and coming back. If you have multiple factories, then you get multiple views together. So it is up to you, like I said, an ROI that you have to define and accordingly choose a product. So this is just an example of a product like that, which allows you to have a complete visibility of when did your factory start, what's your production line status looking like, and how exactly are you performing. There are different things that you can monitor. You can monitor energy consumption. If it is power, great. If it is diesel, so be it. If it is, let's say, something else, a coal based, you can monitor all of those. What's your input incident cost? What's your variable cost? What's your fixed cost? All of those monitoring, if you do, you will come to know what is it that I need to do. If there is any anomaly, if there are anomalies that are happening, let's say in the morning or afternoon or evening, I'll give an example, right? So in our office, when we, okay, something happened to my camera. I hope that is okay. So let's say in our office, we were able to identify that there are two peaks in the AC loading. So I'm talking about pre-COVID time. So there were two times when the AC was peaking, right? The first time was very, very standard. Obviously, I'm not talking from the morning time. Morning is obviously going to happen when the office opens at 8 a.m. So that's the time when obviously when the ACs are kicked on, there will be a surge in electrical current. Great. What happens to the second time? Second time when people have lunch, right? So there are cafeterias that are open. Cafeterias are constantly heating the food because food has to be slightly heated before it is served. Even though if it is not cooked there, it is still heated. So there is a bit of hot body effect, or rather warm radiation that is happening, which is loading the system. So that's another peak that happens. There's another peak that happens. I don't know whether that is true on all the places or not, but at least in our organization, that's a snack time, which is around 3:30ish, right? That is the time when people come down from their areas and maybe have a little bit of a snack at that time. So I have seen three peaks: in the morning when we start, obviously, then the second one during lunchtime, and then the third one. I have identified those bottlenecks, and based on that, I have figured out that what is it that I can do. Now I have two options. Option number one, very simple. I can take more electricity. So I can give a request to the electricity department and say that I need a higher tariff and higher capacity. What's the problem with that? It's an approach. Yes, you can do it. But what's the problem with that? I will have to now pay at a higher rate, right? And I have to potentially set up a large area. So for example, in our case, we had to set up a 66 kV station because we were running, we were almost at the limit of standard supply. So then we decided that, okay, we need to have alternate energy sources. So what are the other options? You can run a DG, that's another alternate energy source. So you know that at 12:30, 12:15 is when the peak is supposed to happen. You kickstart the DG at that particular time, it will augment that particular extra load, and then you cut the peak. Approach number one, great. But then we realize that diesel is not that cheap, right? Running diesel is not that cheap. So let's go to another option, solar panels. Since I am this fact, at least my office is running on a daytime basis, I can have solar panels on the top, which can help me augment that particular peak, which is afternoon and evening or later evening. But then there is another problem with solar panels. What if it's a cloudy day like today in Bangalore, right? It rained pretty much last night, whole night. So um, then my performance of solar panels is going to go down. Again, a bottleneck that I identified. Now, what else can I do? So we are one of the first companies in India who have who have used Bloom Energy boxes, which does energy conversion from CNG to electricity without burning it. So it's a chemical process. So the output is non-harmful gases, or at least that's what they claim. And we have installed those. That's a constantly running system. It is constantly running 24/7, which is powering our data centers and also the peak offload that can be done. So these are some of the techniques that you can do. All of these are again based on your ROI. For us, the ROI was lost cost of land that we have to give away, and obviously the cost of things that we have to be looking at, right? So the incidental cost of increased load, increased money that you have to pay for the electricity and all of that, right? So this basically gives you those visibility and views. Another partner that we have is Switch-On. Switch-On is also doing something similar, where they are doing a voltage and current analysis to figure out how your solution will look like whether there is so it also does predictive maintenance and gives you a visibility of where your failures are going to be looking like, and a dashboard at the end of the day, right? So all of those visibilities are something that people have. Now coming to phase two. So visibility, obviously, visibility, without visibility, you really can't understand where are your failures, right? So once you have those failures identified, then we move into compliance. The first and foremost compliance, which is the need of the day today, and I might have to speed it up a little bit because I do not have question answer time. So compliance, the second portion that we have is COVID compliance, right? So quickly, there are rapid temperature scannings that partners have brought in, a partner called Sparsh. There are other different partners. The advantage, obviously, if you are doing a thermal scan, which is a simple IR base, that also you can do, or you can do a little bit of a broad scan if there are multiple people coming in together, right? So there's a great use case for a large factory environment where too many people come in together, or you can do it in a one by one basis with an IR gun. So it's up to you. But that's a cost of compliance that you have to follow because of government regulations and restrictions. This is another example that we have from a partner called Uncanny Vision, who have deployed social distancing measures. So in this particular example, we have indoor and outdoor, where they have done a wire body model, as in a human wire body model, and figured out how far are these people, and if they are too close, alert can be brought in. And this is actually being done for a European customer, right, where they are asking for social distancing to be followed within an organization. Now again, like I said, it depends what are you trying to do and where are you trying to do. There are ROIs on top of it, but like I said at the start, vision based solutions have become extremely economical, and people are deploying it on a large basis, right? So some of the other cases, like they have the best in class um, license plate recognition solution in India, almost 97% accuracy in day and night time. Daytime 97, nighttime around 95%, and all handwritten and everything they can detect, right? So these are some of the key USPs of Uncanny Vision. So if you're looking at, let's say, parking lot automation, or trying to log in which truck has come in and which truck has gone out, all of those can be automated and put in, right? So you will get a visibility around it. Another company which is doing process compliance is Wobot. They are trying to again recognize the activity and figure out if there is a non-compliance that is happening. Now, this feature is extremely important today. Why? Skilled labor is going to be a little bit tricky once the whole factory comes back, right? And at least this is the feedback that I'm receiving from China, as well as from some of my partners and customers in Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia region, right? So workers coming back for work will be little tricky. Maybe the same skilled worker may not be available to you. So now do you spend again on reskilling, or do you deploy a solution like this for your semi-skilled labor to follow what exactly they need to do, right? So that's another process compliance that is there, and you will get to know in real time if there is a non-compliance that has happened, right? So these are some of the cases that they are following. For example, they have a compliance solution that they have launched for healthcare, where if the person is not washing the hand for 20 seconds and properly, right? So back of the hand, front of the hand, fingers, if they are not washing it properly, then there will be an alert raised. Now, that solution may not be useful for manufacturing, but definitely is useful for healthcare, right? So if you are a hospital, maybe it might help you over there, right? So something of that sort. Now coming to the third phase, which is again, like I said, it is, so look at the cost parameters also, right? The visibility is relatively cheaper. Coming to anomaly detection and all of that, you need to do more visibility. So you need to attach more sensors to get the data in, and now you, like I said, you will be able to have compliance check, right? So whether it is a worker compliance check or all of that. So if you have existing assets, great. Otherwise, you'll have to add few more assets there. Now coming to the final phase, which is automation. Now, how much of automation is, again, like I said, completely dependent upon how much you want to achieve, right? What's your cost of rejection? So there are a lot of defect detections that we have come across, for example, with the work that we have tried to do. For in the first case, you have seen the PCB manufacturing as a sector. Second phases, we are looking at automotive manufacturing. Then the last one, there can be textile and all of the other cases, right? So we have to see what is the cost of failure and what's the rejection rate, right? So quick examples in the die cast industry, which is basically again similar to automotive, where we were looking at different defects, and the accuracy of the system was 99%, way better than what a human would do, right? Textile, in this particular case, again, if the quality of textile before stitch and after stitch, if you have figured out that there is a defect, the whole lot is rejected. Uh, when you are looking at selling at a margin, right? Uh, some things that you would like to, let's say, sell to a high value partner or a customer, the quality parameters are more stringent. Obviously, electrical parameters, manual assembly check, all of those are examples that we have seen great value when somebody has implemented. So an example here, we have another partner called A Squared IoT, A2IoT, where they have again given a visibility portal, and they are detecting weld quality. So if you are a welding, or in your factory there is welding operations that happen, just by looking at the audio signature of the whale, this partner can tell you whether the whale is good or bad. What's your performance? What's your life availability? So all of these parameters are made available to you, and now you can figure out if there is a likely failure that's going to happen. So this is all predictive maintenance or predictive failure that is there. Another example, SensoVision, which I was talking to you about, they can do measurements of bolts and nuts, figure out if there are any defects and the cause of defects. They will actually check the labels and figure out any contaminations, anything, right? So what are the parameters that you're looking for, and they will be able to do that. Remember, first one, stage one visualization is slightly generic, right? So even though there might be a few tweaks for what type of visualization you want, but the system still becomes very generic. The second step again is specific because it is changing from your environment to other environment. The third step is extremely specific because this has to be customized for your requirement. Because what are you manufacturing? What is it that you are measuring? And what type of sorting that you require, right? So all of those are coming in. Another examples that are coming in from them, so they can also automate the system by putting conveyors and rejection systems and everything. So you can do a inspect and sort, and based on that you can move forward. Another partner that we have is Constance AI. So if you notice the shape, this looks like a Dettol bottle. So you can understand. And these guys have automated inspection and sorting for these kind of bottles. The errors that are possibly there in the bottle can be print errors, missing labels, or smudges that are there. So what happens to those kind of failures, right? So automation of inspection and a rejection system, right? So this is something of that sort where people have achieved more than 95% accuracy. So an example, which is what we used to call it as tribal knowledge, tobacco grading or coffee grading, for example, or tea grading for that matter, right? So remember earlier people would sniff the tea or look at the tobacco and sniff the tobacco and say that, okay, this is grade 1, this is grade 2, this is grade 3, right? Can I automate it? What if that particular expert is not there anymore, not available to me? Can I automate it? Can I use some kind of a system to get that accuracy? And that's essentially what people are trying to do, and they have achieved it across large and medium organizations. So having said that, there are a lot of solutions. You can also look at these listings in our portal. So we have what we call it as a market ready solutions, where we go through a lot of analysis and mature enough? How can this all of In a nutshell,
Use this for automation of inspection and batch production system. I
yes.
think you did clarify with that Datol example, the company which was doing. So yeah, maybe like to reiterate again. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, so people are doing batch inspections, and it is happening in food processing and beverage plants also. I'll give an example. I can't name the customer because I don't have a permission from them, but one of the bottling plants where they do ketchup bottling, if the bottle falls while the mold is supposed to, or rather injection is going to go and fill that bottle, if the bottle falls, then the overall downtime to clean up that whole area is approximately half an hour, right? So solution of these type, which is inspecting and figuring out that a bottle is missing and stop the injection to happen at that particular time, that's another example, which is also an inspection and control operation. So there are partners who are doing something like that for those kind of companies also.
Right. A question generally asked by 2, 3 participants is on the ROI. That what kind of
Mhm.
ROI can they expect in terms with MSMEs adopting this IoT solutions?
So you will have to tell me what's the cost. See, it's like this. I can go to a very, so if you remember the earlier statement that I said, first simple step can be a simple barcode reader for you to see when has your supplies come in and when has your supplies gone out. What will happen? You can potentially have a GST compliance or automation that you can do, like for example, input credit that you want to figure out, right? You can do a very simple check. What do you require for it? A simple PC, couple of barcode scanners, and maybe a database that you can put forth. That can be a very simple approach, a very simple cost effective approach. Then you go into visibility portal where you could have to put in gateways, machines, some sensors around it. These cost anywhere between, so there are different models. So I really don't want to comment on the pricing because they are partner pricing, but we are more than welcome to connect to these partners. So they can give you, let's say, a very simple gateway, a very low cost gateway that can connect to the machine and give you visibility of how the machine is working. So you will have to tell me what's your ROI. So I'll give an example. There was a stone crusher factory that I was interacting with in Hyderabad, near Hyderabad, where they said that if the stone crushing machine, if it is not working or the downtime is anywhere between 5 to 6 hours, and with that downtime, the backlog that he has to service is approximately 7 to 8 trucks, and that loses the overall cycle time for him. The delivery cycle is lost, and he also loses customers because of that. So that particular customer, stone crushing customer, went ahead with a very simple sensor, a voltage and current sensor, to detect if there are any anomalies in operation in the stone crusher itself. And if there is any anomaly, you do a sudden shutdown, and with that shutdown you are able to save the cost of complete repair, right? So before the failure happens, you are just going to monitor that. So let's say if there are some kind of dust that has gone in the gears or something else that has happened. An example that in the China example, where in the injection mold, if there are pieces of mold that has broken in, that can ruin all your injections after that. I'm talking about aluminum injections, right? So all of the molds after that are failed, and that's a big cost for those kind of companies. So you have to define the ROI. What is the failure that you are getting, and how much are you okay to provide? As in, what should be the cost? Like the example of geyser, like I
Right.
told you, my thumb rule is simple: 10%. That's typically how I put it across. If your problem statement is 1,000 rupees, I assume you will be okay to pay anywhere between 100 and 150 rupees, right? So that's how I calculate ROI.
Sure. Thanks, Amit. Mr. Joy Devan is a company called Parker Legris. They are partners in the center for competitiveness. He's asking, have you provided any solution for compressed air through condition monitoring?
So compressed air through condition monitoring, yes, there are people who have done that. Again, partners who have done that, where they are monitoring the pressure as well as the vibration of the compressor itself. So depend upon how much you want to go into, right? So people have created physics model of the compressor or the blower itself and figured out what's the remaining life. So Flutura is one of the companies who have done that, specifically in the oil and gas sector as well as in the process industry sector.
Right. So there's a comment from Mr. Ramesh Nidambur. He's saying we'll be interested in building automation, scalability, data acquisition from the existing old legacy manual to welding system. So that's great. Sure, Mr. Ramesh will connect you to Amit. Mr. Arul Shan Muguvelu is asking regarding welding. Did you mention that A Square IoT is measuring weld quality through audio sound?
Yes, they are using that using audio. Now you can measure the weld quality using audio via voltage and current signature or via camera. These guys have come up with an innovative idea of audio.
Right. Mr. Shailendra Saxena is asking what kind of automation do you suggest for food processing industry where fresh and frozen
I lost you. Is it only me? Hello. Hmm. Vignesh, I can't hear you. Hello.
Yeah, Amit, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, can you repeat that question? I couldn't hear you then.
Yeah. Shailendra Saxena is asking what kind of automation do you suggest for food processing industry where fresh and frozen raw materials are handled?
So there are different automations that can be done on that one. Obviously, input level inspection is something that you can do. For example, there is a company called Intello Labs, right, which have done a fantastic work in just input inspection. So, for example, if you are making ketchup, right, so your tomatoes have to be good. Are the tomatoes raw or not? So you have to define that, right? So what's your cost today? And based on that, or what's the amount of rejections that you foresee. So it would be a good conversation. If you can connect, great. We can possibly discuss and figure out what type of automation you require. But input and output, bottling or while shipping, for example.
Mr. Ashwin Shah is asking, would you share the copy of presentation? That's fine. Does Intel help in getting such systems efficient?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so Mr. Shah, we can help you get in touch with Amit and the partners as well. Mr. Mangesh Nikal J is asking, can we use technology to health check of pumps and motor and controller?
Oh, absolutely. Switch on, for example, is doing exactly that. So they are in how your company called
Right.
Electrono.
Mr. Anil Janardhan is asking, can the process compliance solution be used as a training tool for people?
Yes, you can. So you can complement it as a training also, or you can do it as a standalone exercise. So there is a company called Simunalis, which is based out of Noida, which does training modules specifically in conjunction with process compliance. Yes.
All right, Mr. Shailendra Saxena, who had asked about the food processing industry, is asking, can you share some links where various options along with tentative pricing? So I
So
think that can
tentative
be.
pricing is difficult. I think I can definitely share the partners, no doubt. Tentative pricing would be based on how, like I said, there are different guys who claim different accuracies, and so based on that, you can pick and choose.
Mr. Kapil Sharma is asking, what is the current level of standardization amongst various hardwares slash sensors and communication protocols in IoT space?
So that's a very tough one. There is a forum called OSDU. So if you guys are part of it, please join. If you are not, then it will be tricky. So see, it's like this. Industry per se, 4.0, yes, is trying to standardize, but we are also trying to work with legacy systems. So legacy systems can be from from different companies. Like it can be Siemens, it can be ABB, it can be Schneider, Honeywell, for example, right? Now, do they interoperate? The answer is no. The previous generation, no. The current generation, we are working through it. So do I have a standard defined and accepted by everyone? No. But are we in the process of doing it? Yes.
Right. Mr. Rohit Agrawal is asking, can barcoding be used in iron foundry for inventory management and workmanship?
Oh, absolutely. People are using barcodes. There are people who are using 2D barcodes, for example, because it is too hot. So there are people who are using metallic printed 2D barcodes, for example, in a very hot environment and trying to monitor the batch. Yes.
Mr. Ketul Shah is asking, how do you see predictive maintenance for water resource? Followed by, he's asking if we are asking our developer for some IoT solution, which technologies do you recommend, like MATLAB, Python, etc.?
So yeah, so see, you can choose. So today, like I said, there are boatload of tools that are available. So I don't know whether I showed you this art. You can go with MATLAB, you can go with Google Sensor, TensorFlow, you can go with Cafe. Now, having said that, I want to quote an example. Again, what type of water quality sensing you want to do? I would like to quote again an Intel scenario. So if you are a factory environment, you need to ensure that your outlet is conforming to the standard measurement that you order. So your pH has to be right, your turbidity has to be right, and your overall, let's say, BO, the total dissolved oxygen in the water that you are rejecting or sending out has to be right, right? So those are conformance vectors that are there. So what we had tried to do is we had tried to put in a sensor, a very simple sensor. There's a company called InnoWire which did it for us in Bangalore. Those guys put in those kind of a sensor, which is a simple blow, as in with a bloat, that particular sensor is put into the tank, and we were able to get those parameters. And with those parameters, we were able to figure out that is our filtration system good. That means if the turbidity is getting high, what's the time to change the filter? So instead of changing the filter just randomly every month, we were actually able to change the filter after 1 month and 25 days. So savings, a lot of savings. We were able to figure out that the pH, where that they have to maintain somewhere around 6.5 to 7.5, we were actually putting in too much of alkaline solution and making the pH too low because we didn't know that this much of additives have to be added. Since we were getting real-time pH value, we saved on those alkaline additives, right, and save cost over there. So these are some of the examples that we have personally seen, at least I have personally seen, and there are factories which have seen something similar.
Sure. Mr. Ranjit Singh is asking, in a garmenting company where our raw material and final product differs frequently, what kind of automation we can have?
So there are two types of automations that you can do. Number one is your input automation. So when you are cutting the reel, before you are cutting the reel, and that's exactly what China is doing today, where we are talking about the Taobao factories. There, before the reel being cut, they are inspecting if there are different types of fabric defects that are there, right? So that's number one. And then number two that is happening again with a partner called Constance AI in Noida, where they are measuring the output, and again, and you rightly said variations do happen. So what they are trying to figure out is the measurement of the fabric itself, whether they are conforming to the size that you want, the design and the size, are they matching? So those kind of inspections are being automated as we speak.
Right. We'll take a couple of more questions if that's okay.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Sudhir Pawar is asking if solution for CETP, common effluent treatment plant. We treat textile
Mhm.
industrial effluent. Major element of cost is energy and chemical dosing. What do we suggest there?
Yeah, you can put in sensors like I told you, right? So examples are the same thing. You'll have to tell me what type of chemical dosing and do you want to measure, what will be a parameter to do the chemical dosing, right? So what's your input parameter that you check? So these kind of instantaneous sensors, very cheap. Nowadays, these sensors, pH sensors and turbidity sensors and your TDS sensors are very cheap, right? So those are some things that you can use to figure out what type of dosing, is it okay or not okay, or how much kind of cleanup or filtration do you need to do. So like I said, all those are becoming fairly easy.
Right. There's this question from Mr. Sudhir Shiradkar. He's asking, vision cameras for plastic injection molding machine monitoring, is it available with you or with partners?
With partners, see, all the solutions are partners. So Constance AI, again, like I said, Noida-based company, or in for that matter, 8 Squared IoT in Pune, or SensorVision in Bangalore can do that inspection for you.
Right. Question from Mr. Ketul Shah again. On a general question, he's asking why the cost of manufacturing is always cheap in China compared to India. What improvements do we need in Indian factories?
Okay,
We
that's a
mentioned
bit of a
that
loaded
in
question.
the Q&A. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will. So there are a couple of things that are there. Obviously, one is the tax structure. So you will have to know. You have to figure that out. So tax structures in China is definitely lower. The second one that is definitely there is that they have done a lot of automation, discrete automation, but they have done something of that sort. So wherever there is a repeat work happening, they have tried to either create that kind of an automation themselves or deployed European machines for automation. So those are the places where I have frankly seen. So that's why I said they are not neither two nor three, somewhere in between. They are discrete machines that they have put in. They have not really connected it, but they have automated certain of those tasks. And with that, they see a great improvement. And see, overall, it is all about operating efficiency. So if you are able to improve those, your overall cost comes down for the product itself. So that's how I have seen that, at least in Chongqing area. I have been to Wuhan before, and I have seen some factories over there, specifically the automotive factories, and that's what I have observed there.
Right. There's this question, person is asking whether we have any case study available for electronic and PCB industry, circuit board. So electronic or
Yes,
circuit board industry, yes. Yeah,
yes,
so
absolutely.
that's sure. Um, right. So there are some questions on presentation. So all for all participants, we have a website called citechsaksam.in where Intel is our lead partner, project partner. The recording of this webinar would be available there. All right. Another question from Mr. Ramesh Nidambur. He's asking which Indian partner is manufacturing cameras for sensing the welding arc characteristics and integrated with penetration metal temperature. Okay.
So, do I have a sensor manufacturer? No. Do I have a camera manufacturer? Yes. So there is Sparsh, for example. There is Econ in Chennai, for example. There are other obviously external partners that are there. The solution is done by India. The sensor manufacturer, not really. It is still coming from outside.
Right. I think Mr. Ramesh, that answers your question. Right. I think we will have to wrap it up. We have already exceeded the time limit of more than 10 minutes. Mr. Sudhi Siratkar, Mr. Ketul Shah, Mr. Pawar, Mr. Agrawal, you have some questions there. We'll take it up maybe on our emails. And I would
Yeah,
like to now
you
thank.
can feel free to, yeah.
Yeah,
You can send
yeah.
me emails. I'll definitely try to respond back as soon as possible. Yes.
Thank you so much, Amit. That's very helpful for all the participants. Many people had asked for your contacts as well, so we'll connect you to Amit as soon as possible for all the queries you've given. Thank you, participants. Thank you, CIM members. Thank you, MSME Council members, especially for joining in. And thank you, Amit, for taking this experience session on IoT, and we look forward for more such sessions in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, so this initiative was part of the project called CI Tech Saksham for MSMEs. You can log on to citechsaksam.in. You will find various solutions there. We have some videos of Intel also there. The recording will be uploaded there soon in 24 hours time. And also just to update you, CII is doing a lot in the area of COVID. There is this website called CII COVID Update 19.in. You can log on to that CII COVID Update 19. Sorry, COVID-19 update, and you can find a lot of answers to your queries if you have on COVID, and also the latest updates which are following from the government. And also, if you're a manufacturer of some essential items, you can pull in your comments there. Thank you so much, Amit. And on behalf of the participants, I would like to thank and close the session.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you again for the participant for all the interactions.
Thank you, Amit. Dear participants, we are closing the session now. You may like to leave. Thank you.
How do I close it?